Alright, for this tutorial we are going to take an already existing photo of a bathroom and we are going to add some graffiti to the walls and floor and make it look like the graffiti belongs there. So we're going to use pictures of a bathroom, graffiti that are already existing. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to check my desktop because that's where my pictures happen to be. So I'm going to go to Writing on the Wall, to my JPEGs, and now I can see their names, but if I come up here I can change this to thumbnails, and now I can see that I have pictures of graffiti as well as a picture of a bathroom. So I'm going to start with the bathroom one, just double click it to open it, and here's our bathroom right there. Okay, now I want to choose a piece of graffiti and I'm going to put one on the floor here. This is where I'm going to start. So let's go to File, Open, and I'm going to change my view to thumbnails again so I can see. And I'm going to choose this one of this character. So here's our graffiti. Now in order to bring this into the bathroom, I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool, and that is going to basically cut this figure out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feather it. So when I have the rectangular marquee tool selected, I can choose a feather. If I'm not selected on the marquee tool, feather is not an option, so you have to make sure that you're on that tool. So I'm going to feather this, and what feathering does is it fades it out on the edges. It makes it look like not such a sharp cut. So I'm going to feather at 25, and I have to enter 25 in here, and then I'm going to hit enter, and that means that it's locked in there. And now I'm going to cut around my guy. I'm going to just cut around his body there. Alright, and notice that I have rounded edges on my selection. It is because it's feathered. Now I'm not going to use the selection tool to actually move this, because if I move it with the selection tool, I'm just moving the selection and not the actual picture. I have to come up to my move tool, and now when I click and drag, notice that I'm pulling this thing out of the picture, and I can just drop it right into my bathroom picture. So there it is, and it's actually been put onto a new layer, and I can even name this floor if I wanted to, so that I know that that's the floor picture. Okay, as of now, it's just a blank square. It's staring us right at the face, but if you look at our floor, I'm just going to drag this out of the way so we can see. You can see that there's perspective lines. The lines of the floor go away from us. The things up here, like the bathtub, look closer to us than the toilet does. So what we want to do is make this picture look like it is falling away from us as well. The way that we do that is I'm going to come up here to Edit, and I'm going to go to Transform, and we're going to use Perspective Transform. With this transform, like any other, we have these squares or these little handlebars that we can grab, and we can change the perspective of this item. Now if I click and drag this top left corner and I pull it inward, it looks like the picture is falling away from me. If I pull it out to the left, then it looks like it's coming towards me. If we pull it up, it looks like it's coming towards me at the side, and if I pull it down, it looks like it's falling away from us from the side. So the one that we want is the one where I'm pulling it in like this to the right, and that way it looks like it's falling down onto the floor. So that looks pretty good, and I'm going to place that kind of right over the floor area. I can see that some of the floor hasn't been covered here, but I'm going to take care of that in the next step. As soon as I like it the way I want, I'm going to hit enter or return. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform. Free Transform looks just like Perspective, only in this transform I can grab these handles and pull them out to stretch my picture. I can also grab the corner one and stretch the top and the side at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this out so that it's covering the entire floor. See, there's still a little bit of floor here, so what I'm going to do is stretch it out beyond where I need it here and just kind of move it over so that it's covering the entire floor. Once I like it in the place that it is, I'm going to hit enter or return, and that's going to set it exactly where we want it. Now there's a problem. The sink, the toilet, and the bathtub are all being covered up by this image, and the way that I can eliminate that is by using what's called a layer mask. If you come over here to your layers window, you can see this button that says add layer mask. What I'm going to do is click and add the layer mask, and what this does is it brings up this mask. Now everything that is white on this mask is something that we can see, something that remains on the picture. But as soon as I put black on this mask, I can see through the picture onto the next layer. I basically poke holes in this mask and I can see through this mask to the layer beneath it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paintbrush, and with my paintbrush I'm going to turn it up a little bit. I'm going to make it a hard edged brush, and I'm going to make it about 54 pixels just to show you what this does. Now with a black brush selected, I'm going to come over here to the bathtub and I'm going to start drawing. And as you see, the bathtub now is showing up. And I can just erase where this thing is covering up the bathtub. Don't worry if you go too far, I'm going to show you how to correct that. So I'm going to come around the bathtub, I can see the edge there. I want to get rid of this part that's covering the sink as well, and the part that's covering the toilet. Okay, notice that the picture looks like it's been erased. It actually hasn't been erased. All I've done is made the mask black in those areas, and whatever's black we can see through, whatever's white remains. And so since whatever white is what remains, if I switch my brush to a white, so I'm going to click this little switch button here, it switches it between black and white. Now I've got a white brush. I can come back here and I'm actually going to come up to my navigator and I'm going to zoom in on my picture. And if you grab this little box right here in the navigator, I can move around the picture. Notice that my picture is being moved around. I'm going to make this bigger so that we can see it. And I'm going to move this right over the tub right there. So now I've got the tub right here and I'm using a white brush. When I paint with a white brush, it's going to bring that picture back. So this will take a little bit of time to get it perfect, and I'm not going to do it entirely perfect. If I was going to be doing it perfect, I would spend a little bit more time, but I'm just kind of doing this quick. And it's all about, going into those little crevices with a smaller brush. So I'm just going to fill this in to make it look like it belongs. I'm going to come around to the sink and I'm going to come up and I'm going to change my brush size to a smaller size so that I can get into those little cracks. See, I've overlapped the sink a little bit. I can just go back to my black brush and I can kind of work my way around there, switch back to a white, and I can come around the sink here, black, because this part is being covered. And you can see how this works. Now, a little word of warning. If I am selected on my mask, I will erase and bring back the paint because I'm painting over this mask. If I click onto my picture, however, and notice that there's a little box around my picture now. The box around my mask, box around the picture. If my box is around the picture and I come up here, I'm actually going to paint my picture white, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back in time and get rid of that. I want to make sure that I'm on my mask part of the layer, otherwise it's going to paint the actual paint color on top of my picture. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to paint actually I don't want this thing to cover the wall, so I'm going to erase all the parts that are covering the wall here. And then I'm going to come back with my white brush and bring the stuff in that, went a little too far there. Bring that stuff back in so that it's covering only the tiles. I don't want it to look like we painted the toilet or the sink or the bathtub. Alright, once you get it the way you want it, and mine's a little rough, but I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to bring my navigator back to where I can see the entire picture. And you can see that the toilet and the sink and the bathtub are all not being painted over. They're a little sharp edged, and I would probably go in there and clean them up a little bit, but just for the sake of time I'm going to keep it the way it is. Now, it doesn't really look like it belongs there still, it just looks like it's a photograph that's been cut out a little bit. So what we can do is if I go over here, I can come over to my layer blending options where it says normal, click on here, and I can go to overlay. Overlay will make it look like the floor is coming through. And you can try a couple of these and see which ones you like. If I start on normal and it's highlighted, I can use my up and down arrow keys on my keyboard, and I can just go cycle through these and see which one I like the best. Some of them look better than others. I think overlay looks really good for this kind of project. Here's overlay again. But some of them, might appeal to you. A lot of them will make it look like there's the brick wall is still in place, whereas others will make it look like a pencil drawing. And I'm actually going to show you how to do this exact thing, but we want to use overlay for it. So I'm going to use overlay. Here's overlay, and you can see that their tiles can show through. Now what I can do is what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this both in color and in black and white, so it looks like it's either been sprayed on, and so it also looks like it might have been pencil drawn on. I'm going to take my layer here and I'm going to drag it down to the new layer icon to create a new layer. So basically what I've done is duplicated this layer. Another way of doing it is right clicking on it and going to duplicate layer. But since I've already duplicated it, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Now in order to see what this one is like, I'm going to change this floor to, instead of copy, I'm going to name it B and W or black and white. And I'm going to turn the eyeball off of this layer so that I can only see the top layer. Now if I want this to look black and white, I can still use the overlay option to make it look like it belongs. But what I can do is come up to Image, Adjustments, and I can go to Desaturate. Saturation is the amount of color that something has. So if you turn down the saturation, it just makes the colors less and less until it turns into complete black and white. If we desaturate, we are eliminating all color. So if I go to desaturate, you can see that this looks kind of like a pencil sketch on the bathroom floor, which is also kind of a cool effect. Just depends on what you think looks nice. Now I'm going to show you how to do this wall with the mirror on it, and how to get this mirror cut out perfectly, and the bathtub actually too. It's just that I want to do it on the mirror here just to show you. We're going to use the pen tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to choose a new piece of graffiti. And once again I'm going to go to Thumbnails, and I'll choose this piece right here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my selection tool, make sure 25 pixels is feathered, and I'm going to go around this word and use my Move tool to move this thing onto my picture. Now I've got this on layer 1, and I'm going to name this Wall, because it's going to go on the wall. Now, since this image is so large, and it's way larger than my background image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Transform tool, Edit Free Transform, and I'm going to drag this middle one. If I pull it out, I'm stretching it, and if I push it in, I'm moving it in. I'm going to pull this in, and then I'm going to move it onto my screen more, and then I'm going to squeeze it in again, move it onto my screen, and there I've got this word, which used to be really long, now is all squished up, which is good because I want it to go on my wall. It's also not as big as the wall, so what I'm going to do is pull this down, pull this handler down to make it a little stretched. It's okay if it looks distorted because it is graffiti after all, and I don't really mind if it looks distorted. We're going to use the perspective transform to make it look like it belongs on the wall. Once I like it the way it is, I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to come up to Edit, Transform, Perspective, and remember the last time I pulled this in to make it look like it fell into the floor? Well, this time we're going to do something different. This time I'm going to grab the top right corner and I'm going to pull it down. Notice that my words look like they're big on this side and smaller on this side. It looks like I'm standing closer to this part of the word than I am to that part of the word. Okay? Now I'm going to put it in place. I'm going to hit enter. It still doesn't look perfect, but don't worry, we have to transform this a few times to make it look good. It also isn't covering my entire wall again. So I'm going to go to Edit Free Transform, and I'm going to pull the Free Transform middle bar down so that it's covering the whole wall, and I'm going to take this part and I'm going to squeeze it in like so until it looks like it belongs on the wall. I'm going to make it even a little bit bigger because it's not really covering the whole wall. See how it's totally covering the bathtub and there's a lot of a space up here? I'm pulling it down farther here because I can just move it up to where it needs to be. So that looks pretty good. Yes. Hit enter, and it is now laid into the wall. Now, the way that we get rid of that mirror part is I'm going to actually turn the eyeball off of my wall layer, so I can't see it. It's there, but I can't see it anymore. And I'm going to click on my background layer, and with my background layer selected, well actually I don't have to select my background layer, I can stay on my wall layer, sorry. With the wall layer selected, I can come over to my pen tool. So here's the pen tool. If I hold down the mouse button, here's my pen. I was on Add Anchor Point. See the little plus sign? I don't want to be on Add Anchor Point, I want to be on the pen tool. So I'm going to click on the pen tool. I'm going to make sure that Paths is selected, not Shape Layers. Make sure that Shape Layers is not pressed down, but the Paths is pressed down. And what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to zoom in on my mirror again. Zoom in on the picture so I can see the mirror. That's a little bit too close. I'm going to pull this out a little bit so that the mirror is just taking up the whole screen. Alright. Now what I can do is take my pen tool and click points around the mirror. So I'm going to start with this point right here and click, and then I'm going to come up here and click again. Then I'm going to come down here and click. Click here. Click at the bottom. Click at the bottom corner. And click there. And now I've got this pen tool selection around here. And what I can do next is just come up here to the line, right click, and say make selection. It's going to be a new selection. I want it to be anti-alias and I don't want to feather it. I just want it to be at 0. Everything is fine the way it is. I'm going to click OK, and now you can see that we have a selection around just like our square selection tool. Okay, so I'm going to turn my wall layer back on, and now I can see the selection still, and my wall layer is selected. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to come up to my paint bucket tool and I'm going to paint this white. So now I've got white on this layer and I've got it in the exact shape of the mirror. Turn that layer back off, and then I'm going to come up here to select, deselect. So now I've got that shape right here. I can even rename this layer mirror shape. So I've got mirror shape, I've got wall, and I'm going to do the same thing with the wall as I did with the other layer. I'm going to make a mask. So I made a mask and it's white, so I want to paint it black, so I'm going to come here and choose black. I'm going to choose my paintbrush, but now I want to have that mirror shape back. So what I can do is if I hold the control key on your keyboard, while you are right over this part of your mirror shape. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to select just this mirror shape. Hold control and click right there and you get this mirror shape. I'm still on my mask here and I've got my black paintbrush. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush, and I can go over the layer. I can even paint out here and nothing will happen. I can just paint over just the mirror, and the mirror shows up, everything else goes away. Go up to select, deselect. I'm going to zoom back out and you can see that the mirror has been the part of the mirror has been erased and the part that is not over the mirror has stayed. You can do the same thing with the bathtub, the sink, the toilet, everything. You can use the pen tool to shape your way around anything. If we were to do the bathtub, what I would do is go to my pen tool again, and I'd zoom in a little bit so I could see the bathtub a little better. And what I'd do is click here, click at the corner, click here, and I'm going to click here, and notice that this is cutting off the edge here. I'm going to show you how to change that. I'm going to click here, and this also is not a good corner, and click there. Now I'm going to fill in these corners with anchor points. So come back to your pen tool, click on the pen, go to add anchor point, and I'm going to add an anchor point right there. Oops. I'm going to add an anchor point right there by clicking. Once I've clicked, I can drag this little line. I can drag it anywhere I want, see? And I'm going to drag it so that it's just going around the tub just like that. And I'm going to add an anchor point there, click, and then grab this little handlebar, and I can drag it around so that it's just going up to the tub like that. Make another anchor point, and I can arc this thing around. I can continue to use my pen tool. And now I've got a complete selection. I don't care about this part because it's already done. Come up here and right click, make a selection. Everything's the way I want it. I'm going to click OK, and there's the bathtub. Now I'm going to come back to my other layer. I've got this part that I need to erase. I'm on my layer mask. I'm going to come up here to my paintbrush. It's black. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to erase this part. Notice that I'm coloring everywhere, and it's only showing up where my selection is. And if I zoom back out, come up here to select, deselect, and now I've got my paint on the wall. The sink is not done yet. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial because you can do that with the pen tool just like I showed you with the bathtub. But you can see that this nice sharp edge is around here, and it looks like the wall has been painted, and the mirror has been left alone, and the bathtub has been left alone. If I come over here and blend it with overlay again, I can see the tiles beneath the paint. I can come here, right click on my layer, duplicate it. I'm going to click OK, just like we did before. It's showing up really bright now because there's two layers on top of one another that are overlaying. So I'm going to turn off the eyeball of this one again. I'm going to come up here, rename this one, instead of copy, I'm going to name it B and W, just like before, because we're going to make this one black and white. So I'm going to desaturate this one. The eyeball is off of my original one. So I'm going to come up here to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate, and now I've got a pencil drawing basically of this. So here are our layers. We've got the pencil drawing layers that are activated, and you can see the bathroom as it looks like with pencil graffiti. If I turn those eyeballs off and turn the eyeballs on of the other layer, you can see what it looks like with the graffiti of the paint in color. We will also be doing this wall for the project, but I'm not going to go over how to do that for the sake of time. We're going to use the same very exact principles as we did with this one and this one, of cutting around objects, using the layer masks, and using the black and white paint brushes to take away the paint from the areas that we don't want it.